the Law of One Breakdown channel. Have you ever wondered what the raw material actually says about Jesus, free will, sexuality, and even hair? Each week we go straight to the original sessions and explore one topic through the pure wisdom of the Law of One. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this subject. Let's begin. Hello, in this episode I'm going to be talking about the harvest. The harvest is the end of this third density cycle, moving into the fourth density. And the harvest specifically is whether people here on Earth, if they'll graduate into fourth density positive or fourth density negative, or if they'll have to stay in the third density, not here on planet Earth, but they'll have to do a repeat or many repeats until they get to the awareness level of graduating into fourth density. And we'll get into all that and what that means. Okay, let's start off with session 1.9. Dawn asks, can you say something about the coming planetary changes? And Ross says, the changes are very, very trivial. We do not concern ourselves with the conditions which bring about harvest. Okay, in session 6.16, Dawn asks, what is the position of this planet with respect to progression of the cycle at this time? And Ross says this sphere is at this time in fourth dimensional vibration. Its material is quite confused due to the society memory complexes embedded in its consciousness. It has not made an easy transition to the vibrations which beckon. Therefore, it will be fetched with some inconvenience. So basically, as planets, it's not just here on Earth, it's all planets that have life and evolving life, they spiral around and they get closer and closer to the galactic core. And so we'll get into this in just a few minutes, but at a certain time in our past, Earth literally spiraled into the fourth density vibrations. It doesn't mean Earth itself is fourth density vibration yet. I mean, it's considered it's in fourth density and it's trying, but most folks are still very quagmired down in the third density way of thinking about things. And so it's going to be a rough transition. And Ross says it numerous times. And Ra also mentions that it's called an inconvenience. And so in session 6.17, Dawn asks, is this inconvenience imminent within a few years? And Ross says, this inconvenience or disharmonious vibratory complex has begun several of your years in the past. It shall continue unabated for a period of approximately 30 of your years. Now, keep in mind this was back in the early 80s, and I crunched some numbers. And if session 6 was, I think, probably in the first book, so that would be 81. Fast forward 30 years, and it's about 2011 or 2012, which is interesting because that's when the Mayan calendar kind of ended and people thought that all this crazy stuff was going to happen. And it didn't seem to happen yet, but Ra will state over and over that the probable / possible vortexes, or another way of saying it is different timelines, exist. And so I guess we didn't make it then, and we'll get into more of the timelines in just a minute. Okay, in session 6.18, Dawn asks, after this 30-year period, I'm assuming we will be a fourth dimension or fourth density planet. Is this correct? And Ross says this is so. And even though we're in fourth density space and Earth is literally vibrating at a higher rate than it did before we hit that space, we're still in the transition. So whatever was supposed to happen 30 years from the early 80s seems to have been pushed forward. And I have some thoughts on that. I'm going to keep it to myself for now, but I might touch on them as we continue on these slides. Okay, in session 13.22, Dawn asks, what is the density level of our planet Earth at this time? And the only reason I'm doing multiples of the same thing, because Dawn does ask questions often that he's asked before, is just every time Ra answers, you glean a little bit more and more. So, and Ra says, the sphere upon which you dwell is the third density in its beingness of mind, body, spirit complexes, meaning us, the human beings on planet Earth. It is now in a space-time continuum, fourth density. This is causing a somewhat difficult harvest. So space-time is this physical, incarnative realm we find ourselves in, and Ra is basically saying we're in part of space on planet Earth that is fourth density, but the people here aren't. And when I say people here, I'm not talking about everybody. I mean, there is a full spectrum of enlightened people here and whatnot. So I'm not grouping everybody in one large mass. Okay, in session 13.23, Dawn asks, how does a third density planet become a fourth density? And Ross says, the fourth density is, as we have said, as regularized in its approach as the striking of a clock upon the hour. The space-time of your solar system has enabled this planetary sphere to spiral into space-time of a different vibrational configuration. This causes the planetary sphere to be able to be molded by these new distortions. And by distortions, because Ra knows that all of space-time is truly an illusion, that's why Ra says distortions all the time. It's just another way of saying illusion. And this just reiterates a few slides back in that we're in a part of space and we're spiraling towards the galactic core. And the closer you get to the galactic core, the higher the density becomes. And so Earth is literally in that space of fourth density. And it probably reflects on the Schumann resonance that's kind of going crazy and many other interesting but kind of catastrophic, in a way, things that are happening on planet Earth. And there'll be a slide soon where Ra talks about that. Okay, it continues on. However, the thought forms of your people during this transition period are such that the mind-body-spirit complexes of both individual and societies are scattered throughout the spectrum, instead of becoming able to grasp the needle, shall we say, and point the compass in one direction. Thus, the entry into the vibration of love, fourth density, sometimes called by your people the vibration of understanding, is not effective with the present societal complex. Thus, the harvest shall be such that many will repeat the third density cycle. The energies of your wanderers, your teachers, and your adepts at this time are all bent upon increasing the harvest. However, there are few to harvest. And probably third density people here now that, die now. Since the transition's seems to be taking longer than Ra originally thought, they probably will reincarnate here during this transition period and try to make it. On a soul level, they're much more aware than we have to come here with the amnesia and overcome sort of the materialistic ways of looking at just Earth, and there's just this, and there's just, there's so many rules of how one's supposed to think and whatnot. And you have to shake all that off to sort of start doing the inner work and finding out what's going on. And, the law of one explains it all, pretty much. If Dawn had the wherewithal to ask a question, Ra was always very forthright, unless it was going to infringe on the reader's free will, or Dawn, Carla, and Jim's free will. So the law of one, in my opinion, so far, and there's been a few other books, but the law of one is really sort of my go-to. When I don't understand something, I'll look it up and see what Ra has to say about it. And from there, I usually have some teachings of some kind or another. So it's been very, very powerful in my life. Okay, in session 40.8, Dawn asks, then what will be the time of transition on this planet from third to fourth density? And Ra says this is difficult to estimate due to the uncharacteristic anomalies of this transition. There are at this space-time nexus beings incarnate which have begun fourth density work. However, the third density climate of this planetary consciousness is retarding the process. At this particular nexus, the possibility/probability vortices, or you can think of them as timelines, indicate somewhere between 100 and 700 of your years as transition period. This cannot be accurate due to the volatility of your peoples at this space-time. And kind of crunched some numbers and added up a few things. And after this slide, I'll go through it real quick. In session 40.10, Dawn asks, I'm assuming this vibration started increasing about between 20 and 30 years ago. Is this correct? And Ross says, the first harbingers of this were approximately 45 of your years ago. The energies vibrating more intensely through the 40-year period preceding the final movement of vibratory matter, shall we say, through the quantum leap, as you would call it. And the numbers I came up with, just from all these slides so far, is that if you, let's say this is it's session 40, so maybe this is 82, could be 83. I mean, give or take a year or two, I don't think it really matters in this grand scheme of things, but let's just say 82. Minus 45 would be 1937, which is kind of interesting because that's when the whole Nazism stuff came around. And that's when we first started entering into fourth density space. And we'll get into that. There's going to be slides on that as well. So if you start at 1937 or thereabouts, when we first got into this fourth density space, and Ross says it's going to be between 100 and 700 years of this transition, then if we just take the low number, 100, it'd be around 2037. And so I thought that was kind of interesting too, because I follow certain people that have had interesting experiences with non-humans, and that kind of lines up with what they're being told as well. But again, Ra always says the possibility/probability vortices or vortexes, can change, Nothing's written in stone except for the fact that we will be in fourth density for X amount of years. And fourth density, if I recall, was 30 million years long. So these transitions might take a little longer than was suspected, because of the climate on planet Earth, or it could be less. It just depends on how many people kind of wake up, I would say. Okay, in session 63.9, Dawn asks, now at this present, we have in third density incarnation on this plane, those third density entities, meaning people, of the planet Earth who have been here for some number of incarnations, who will graduate in the three-way split, either positively polarized, remaining for fourth density experience on this plane, the negatively polarized, harvestable, going to another planet, and the rest unharvestable, third density, going to another third density planet. In addition to these entities, I am assuming that we have here already some entities harvestable from other third density planets who have come here and incarnated in third density form to make the transition with this planet into fourth density. Plus wanderers. Is this correct? And Ross says, this is correct, except we may note a small point. The positively oriented harvested entities will remain in this planetary influence, but not upon this plane. What does that mean exactly? Well, there's other sessions where Ross says that planet Earth will not be inhabitable at all through some of the transition time. In session 63.9, Rob basically says that the Earth will be uninhabitable for some time, and that fourth density beings that were harvested from third density, i.e. Earth to going into fourth density, will spend time learning to shield themselves from first, second, and third density beings. And if you've watched the intro to the densities videos that I've made, Rob points out that fourth density through eighth density beings choose to be unseen by third density. And you might ask why? Well, it probably has to do with the free will and the choice that a third density being needs to make. But that's not in the law of one, so that's just me thinking out loud. And why won't the Earth be inhabitable during some of this transition before it gets fully into fourth density, i.e. the people here will all be fourth density. When they have their babies, they'll be fourth density bodies. Probably, and again, I follow all sorts of people and I listen to a lot of different people and I don't believe it all, but some people I really resonate with, and they were told that there's probably going to be an asteroid that hits Earth and that it's quite catastrophic, and that will be the uninhabitable time if that's true. And if that happens, again, the possibility/probability vortexes, the timelines, they could go any which way. So we'll be getting into that in slides to come. Okay, in session 63.20, Dawn asks, now as this transition continues into fourth density activation, in order to inhabit this fourth density sphere, it will be necessary for all third density physical bodies to go through the process, which we refer to as death. Is this correct? And Ross says this is correct. Now, I've heard a lot of spiritual people say, oh, it's some big flash of light's going to happen. We're all going to be fourth density, and then we can all be telepathic and, levitate and what. But Ross has stated numerous times, actually, that no, we have to go through the death process because these are third density bodies. And as Earth is getting closer and closer into deeper fourth density space, Earth will not end up being inhabitable by third density people anymore. And so maybe that uninhabited time, a big catastrophe does wipe out a whole bunch of people. And then the ones that didn't get wiped out, if they're third density and it over time, and I don't have any idea. I mean, fourth density is 30 million years old. So I have no idea how long that would take. But eventually Earth will be 100% green ray, fourth density, and the beings that live here will be fourth density beings, not third density anymore. Okay, in session 63.27, Dawn asks, I will make this statement and you can correct me. What we have is, as our planet is spiraled by the spiraling action of the entire major galaxy, as the big wheel in the sky turns and our planetary system spirals into the new position, the fourth density vibrations become more and more pronounced. These atomic core vibrations begin to create more and more completely the green, he's talking about the green ray, also known as fourth density. That is, the green core vibrations complete more completely the fourth density sphere and the fourth density bodily complexes for inhabitation of that sphere. Is this correct? And Ra says, this is partially correct. To be corrected is the concept of the creation of green ray density bodily complexes. This creation will be gradual and will take place beginning with your third density type of physical vehicle, and through the means of bisexual reproduction, become by evolutionary processes the fourth density body complexes. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to be a flash of the sky and we're all fourth density. I mean, I know a lot of people believe that, but a lot of people believe that we're going into fifth density all of a sudden. I'm like, well, what happened to fourth? But anyway, it sounds like it's going to be a gradual process. Okay, in session 17.1, this is kind of a long one, but it's kind of interesting and it just describes more of this fourth density transition period. Dawn asks, I got 3 questions just now in meditation. I'll ask them first before we continue. First, are we now in the fourth density? Will the effects of the fourth density increase in the next 30 years? Will we see more changes in our environment and our effect upon our environment? Like I stated before, Dawn oftentimes asks the same questions, and we've already answered some of these, but you glean so much more every time Ra re-answers. Okay, Ra says, the fourth density is a vibrational spectrum. Your time-space continuum has spiraled your planetary sphere and your what we would call galaxy, what you would call star, into this vibration. This will cause the planetary sphere itself to electromagnetically realign its vortices of reception of the instreaming of cosmic forces, expressing themselves as vibrational webs, so that the Earth will thus be fourth density magnetized, as you might call it. So it sounds like Earth will also, on top of, possibly other things, be going through a pole shift. And what's interesting, the very first time I read this, I saw the Earth in sort of like its aura or its morphic field, which magnetic field around it. It very much looks like ours. And its north and south pole, due to this new kind of fourth density space that we're in, will require, let's just say, the Earth's crown chakra and the Earth's root chakra, or energy center, to be in a different place. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Okay, we're continuing on with that session 17.1. And Roth goes on to say, this is going to occur with some inconvenience, as we have said before, due to the energies of the thought forms of your people, which disturb the orderly constructs of energy patterns within your Earth spirals of energy, which increase entropy and unusable heat. This will cause your planetary sphere to have some ruptures in its outer garment, while making itself appropriately magnetized for fourth density. This is the planetary adjustment. So earthquakes, volcanoes, which we're seeing right now, more and more of them, it's all part of the transition process. It might seem like, oh, it's the end of the world. No, it's just the end of third density. And so that's why Ra always says that this harvest is going to be, it's going to have inconveniences. It's going to be a rough one. Okay, Ra goes on to say, you will find a sharp increase in the number of people, as you call mind-body-spirit complexes, whose vibrational potentials include the potential for fourth vibration distortions. Thus, there will seem to be, shall we say, a new breed. These are those incarnating for fourth density work. Some that just pop out in my head are like the indigo kids, the crystal something kids, and whatnot. Okay, and lastly, this finishes up session 17.1. Ra goes on to say there will be also a sharp increase in the short run of negatively oriented or polarized mind-body-spirit complexes and social complexes due to the polarizing conditions of the sharp delineation between fourth density characteristics and third density self-service orientations. And I'll talk about that in just one second. Those who remain in fourth density upon this plane will be of the so-called positive orientation. Many will come from elsewhere, for it would appear that with all of the best efforts of the Confederation, which includes those from your people's inner planes, inner civilizations, and those from other dimensions or densities, the harvest will still be much less than that which this planetary sphere is capable of comfortably supporting in service. Yeah, there's a lot of unawoken people. I hate to use the word woke because it's been taken over, but there's a lot of people that just, they don't want to do any inner work. They don't want to know who they are. They're totally fine in the job that they hate or whatever. I'm generalizing, but there's a lot of people that just have no idea what's going on. Okay, in the paragraph above it, if you think about it, we spiraled into fourth density space back around when, the Nazis were in power, and then you think of Stalin and Mussolini, and yeah, they did terrible things, but their reign didn't last forever. It just didn't. And if you think about what's going on right now, there's a massive, kind of war going on with the elites, the globalists. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, I know things look bleak in some places, but I mean, the globalists are getting their proverbial asses handed to them on a platter right now. And so it looks like, and who knows, maybe a new set of freedom for the world really could liberate some of this transition disharmony and we go into fourth density a little bit smoother. And maybe a big catastrophic whatever doesn't actually need to happen. So, who knows? We'll see. This is it for part 1 of the harvest, and I will be making part 2 shortly, and I'll probably just post them both at the same time. And I hope this helps anybody who doesn't understand the end of cycle that we're in right now. And this is what the raw folks had to say about it. And it's probably the clearest, most concise bunch of work on the transition that I've come across so far. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, take care, everyone.